You are not of government. You don't do that work. But when good, hardworking legislators, and you are blessed with them here in the room, I get Bruce Bickford's newsletter just about every week, Bruce, right? Yeah. It keeps you up to speed. And what we do is we send out newsletters that have issues, and we have the names of every legislator attached to those issues. And we have email links to those legislators so that you can talk to them. Excuse me. What you have to talk to them about are some of the principles that the Republican Party stands on. And here's a quote from Lincoln. "America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroyed ourselves." We have our fate. And what you're going to see tonight are decisions that have been made over the last 30 years. 30 years that have taken us from an enviable position to one that is near the bottom when it comes to a robust economy. And we have great opportunity. This is our mission. We believe that there is an opportunity for a bipartisan majority. And I want to just leave that lingering for a second. A bipartisan majority, because it takes two to tango. And we have not seen a bipartisan majority in Augusta, and we have not seen it in Washington working. It is not working for the American people. And the American people are going to rise up, and they're going to get mad. And I'm going to show you some numbers that make that happen. As leaders of Androscoggin County, you have that opportunity. And I want you to really stop and think about that for a second. The fact that you're here tonight makes you a leader. Because right now you are going to be better informed than your neighbors. You will have information that your neighbors and your coworkers and your family and your friends don't have. You're an authority. The definition of an authority is the person in the room who knows the most. And because you have information others don't, you are in a tremendous center of influence. And that makes you special. And you are committed, obviously, to a set of principles and to the work of your party and your candidates. But unless you spread that to somebody else, you lose that leadership. So I want to show you some stubborn facts in the Maine economy. These are stubborn facts that get in the way of making this place a prosperous state. Healthcare costs. It's on everybody's mind. It's been on the minds of Congress for decades, and nothing's happened. It is mired in partisanship. In Maine, too much has happened. And the policies that have been passed by the legislature have made Maine a very expensive state, the second most costly state in the country for health care. We're #1 for Medicaid benefits because of state policy, because the legislature made Maine more generous than any other state. And if I, Tony Payne, go to anthem.com and I plug in my numbers and pick my deductible, and I say, how much is it going to cost me a month to get insured? It comes in at about $900 a month, just for me. Well, then I go back to that little drop-down window and I say, I don't live in Maine anymore, I now live in New Hampshire. Press the button, the magic number comes out. It's less than half because of state policy. Because there are 10 to 11 companies in New Hampshire who are competing for my business. And if I can't get written by any of those companies, there's a state facility like MEMIC is for workers' comp that'll take all comers, and guess what? They're less than half as well. Our energy costs. We're the top third in the country. We're twice the national average for energy costs, for electricity. We're 13.5 cents per kilowatt hour, and the national average is about 6. We need to make some really good, strategic, smart decisions about putting in power lines, connecting to Quebec, connecting to New Brunswick, and get that power flowing into Maine at a cheap rate so that people can afford to make things and sell them on the world market. We have a business climate that frankly stinks. You Google business climate by state, and this is what you get, 6 different rankings. And Maine is never better than 10th worst. 10th worst, and we pretty much drag along the bottom with most of them. And that's about regulation, that's about the tax structure, that's about basically attitude. Is Maine a place where you want to do business? And by these measures, no, we're not. And our tax burden in Maine is about 15th, according to the Tax Foundation. And that is an impediment. And I'll just give you a quick story. I used to work in the insurance business. And the guy that I worked for was in for a big payday. Big payday. And he was in Cumberland. And he said, I'm going to New Hampshire when that check arrives. It's not going to be a check that arrives in Maine. So he moved to Greenland, New Hampshire, and I said, so Mike, how did it turn out? How did it work for you? He said, you've been to my house. I said, yeah, I have. Beautiful house up over the hill, looking over Great Bay. About a $2 million shack. He said, paid for because I moved to New Hampshire. And that didn't just happen once. The guy who took over, many of you may know him, Pat Lavoie, used to be the president of Dunlap. Guess where Pat lives? Right across the street in Greenland, New Hampshire, because of the very same problem. Great opportunity to save money. We can do better, and we have to do better, because when we lost Pat and we lost Mike, what we lost was their civic engagement. We didn't lose just some talent. These guys took off. They were, Pat was the president of or chairman of the board of St. Dominic's. Mike was the president of the Portland Stage Company. And their money, the corporate money, went there. They go to New Hampshire, guess where that money is now? Guess where they hire employees now? In New Hampshire, not Maine. We can do much better. Then here's the real ugly, stubborn facts. More and more of the state looks like me. Old fat, white corpuscle. And that's not a good thing. We have the oldest average age in the nation. Jason touched on that. We're 42 years of age, on average. New Hampshire's 40. See, it doesn't seem like much, but when you take a look at how it's spread out, it's serious. Because 32%, almost a third of our population, is over the age of 65. They've moved beyond their peak earning years. They aren't the entrepreneurs. They're wonderful. We love them. I hope, please, because I'm going to stay here. But the national average is 17% of the population is over 65. We're double. We're an old state. We have to get and keep the most important asset, again, that Jason mentioned, which is we got to keep our kids. We can keep our kids if they have job opportunities, if we have an attitude in Maine that says, this is where jobs can be created and expanded. But with the second lowest population, we're not making babies. We got to do a better job of getting and keeping our kids to stay here and attract new people. Because there's the Piscataqua River Bridge, and half of Maine college kids are going over it, and as Jason said again, they're not coming back. You stole my speech, Jason. And by the way, I'm going to segue here for just a second. I would ask that every one of you sit down tonight, if here's a couple, and decide what your budget is going to be for campaign contributions, and then write the check. Get it to the candidates who are accepting money. At the congressional level, there is no public financing. They need money. It's what makes voice happen. Voice comes in the form of Jacksons, Lincolns, Washingtons, and Franklins. Make sure that all of those gentlemen find their way into the hands and into the coffers of the candidates that you support. And that goes for gubernatorial candidates as well. This is not a free ride. Having been a candidate for Congress, I can tell you that when you have to spend at least half your time knocking on doors for contributions, it's time that you're not spending meeting voters. And that's debilitating. So make a budget, decide what you're going to spend, and cut the check when you get home. Because 2/3 of our college students are leaving who are the best and brightest. The best and brightest, the ones who are the business and tech